Hey my friends, it's me, Stephanie, also known as Drills Our Girl's Best Friend, also formerly known as the Sanding and Polishing Lady. Anyway, we're going to do a WIP Chat. Let me first and foremost tell you, I am in a weird mood today, so I'm not sure what you're going to get, and I'm not sure how much I'm going to talk. So you might be in for a long one. Buckle up, my friends. So yeah, join me in the lazy river with my pretty little mermaid. Because I couldn't wait until next year to start a mermaid. Anyway, yeah, hop into the lazy river with me. It's cool in here because it's hot as hell out there. Hey guys, all right, so first, well, I already said first, so second, it's been a while. The WIP chats that I did about Aiden were supposed to culminate in a Q&A thing with him, where we would ask him some questions and we were going to do the Uno cards again like we did on our Q&A, but he would also have a reverse card. So if he didn't want to answer a question, he could throw out the reverse card and we would have to answer it. I thought it would be a good way for you guys to get to know him better and for just us as a family to have a conversation. I'm not even diamond painting, but give me a minute, I'll get there. For us to just have a conversation and, you know. So we had this whole bright idea that we were gonna like make it like an interrogation where he was gonna be like handcuffed and we were gonna have a spotlight on him and do a whole bit. And then he decided he wanted to film it on his birthday. And then he decided, no, he doesn't want to film it on his birthday anymore. And it has not yet been filmed, even though I've had the questions sitting in my browser since mid-May. And as you all know, there's some health stuff that's been going on, so I haven't really been posting. Not really, I haven't at all. I haven't been really buying anything. Diamond painting at my desk has been really difficult, and I usually can't last very long. So, and I've just been in a funk because all of the drama. So before we get into all of that, I am working on At the Bottom by Greta Lusky, and it's a Distracted by Diamonds kit. I've showed it before, but there you go. She's so pretty. Anyway, you might be confused why I'm working on this one. So I just had my birthday. Miranda bought me the beautiful, I'm not even gonna say it because I'm gonna butcher French, but it is the Tracy Lewis that Distracted by Diamonds just released. I actually came across that artist on Instagram and loved her work so much, and I was sending it to Katie, and Katie said, oh, you should send it to Jessica because she does licensing work for Distracted by Diamonds. So I did that, and Jessica loved it, and she's like, let me show it to Robin. And Robin loved it. So they're like, oh my God, we love it. We're going to reach out to her. And then no information. This was back in like December. And I've asked Jessica like, hey, any chance that it's going to be something I really like? When there's been previous times that Robin's announced that she's got new paintings coming. And Jessica's a pro and she won't tell me nothing. So every drop I was on it because I was waiting and hoping that there would be a Tracy Lewis. And then it figures that when my health is all out of whack and Matt's not making pens, that's when it comes out. And I knew we couldn't swing it as much as I wanted to buy it. I was dying to buy it. So thank you so much, Miranda. I love it so much. I know I said this video is going to be more about my health issues, but excuse me, I'm drinking. There'll be a little bit more about this whole thing and all of the presents that I have been given by friends. Anyway, that's a diamond painting. This is a cover minder from Tmall. It was on clearance, and there were some crystal drills on clearance like a while back, so I bought all of the crystal drills, and I saw this little mermaid heart, so I picked that up. I am using my Muni Made tray. Oh, damn it. Okay, so Miranda got me that kit. I finished the top row, but I had started a space one that I really want to finish before Drills and Chill starts, and I know I can finish that one. I know I'm not going to finish the Tracy Lewis. So once I finish that row, I'm like, okay, this is a good stopping point for me to go back to the space one. However, the space one is from a company called The Good Canvas, which no longer exists. They did tell me, because I asked if it was licensed, and they did say yes, but I kind of just took their word for it, and now I can't go back and see for myself, like if they licensed it directly through the artist, or if it was licensed through a stock image company, or they just don't say anything at all, which means it's probably not licensed. So can't use that here. This kit I've been working on my lap desk, because it is a 52 by 68, I think. So this I can maneuver a little bit on my lap desk. The Tracy Lewis is 60 by 80, and that's a little bit too big for me to work on the lap desk. So that has to be at my desk. This one's my I can't get out of bed or I'm on the couch kit that I've been working on. And so I'm just working on this for now here at the desk so I can film this. That was a whole lot of story for nothing. Anyway, Muni Made tray. Got this pen from some dude. He just gave it to me. I don't know who he is, but he was pretty cute. And I like it. It's not the right colors. It doesn't match, but I really wanted to use it. And then I'm using, oh, I put these in backwards. I'm using my rainbow organizer tray from Bella Art to Nicole. Last time I showed this, I did not show their logo. And then just now, I realized that all of the baggies are facing the wrong way and not with the logo in front. So I'm gonna have to switch that when I'm done filming because that's gonna drive me crazy. Washi I got from Amazon. It was like a mermaid kit. It's actually not terrible. Not having too many issues with it peeling up yet. And this keeps getting rolled in between sessions. I put it in my Zuli tube, so I would expect there to be a lot of lifting with how much I've been rolling it up, but no problem so far. When I work on it on my lap desk, I've been using the Bella Art to Nicole small tray with the lid because my lap desk does not, it's an easel top and it doesn't have a flat surface, so having the lid is like primo, because sometimes my hand goes whoop and I don't need drills flying everywhere. So yeah, these all came pre-bagged. So when I got my Little Mermaid from Juju, and it matches this kit, I'm like, I need to start the kit. It comes Ziploc. I just have to throw them in the organizer and I'm ready to go. So that's what I'm doing. In my pen, I've been using the super sticky patty wax, this Little Mermaid thing that came part of a set. I'm probably gonna switch to WeWax, but I am very stingy, so I want to use what's in here until I can't use it anymore before I switch waxes. Real quick as well, I'd like some opinions. So I wanted to do something special on this because there's no ABs or anything. I tried to look for ABs in like her hair and part of her tail, and I really wasn't finding many in the right DMC, and I'm not about to like visually compare. Like, I just want the DMC to be the right DMC. So what I decided to do was, there's square crystals, and I decided that I was going to try to bling up this alt shadow. I'm sorry. I was going to bling up this bottle that she's holding. So there's like 3 different colors in it. There's like a white, a darker green, and a lighter green. So I thought I would do, I mean, you can't really see them because there's so many backings, but I got these crystal ABs. And then I got green flame and mint ice. So once I get to that section, I'll try to figure out which color more closely resembles these to figure out what symbol is going to be what. But do you like that idea, or do you think it's going to look silly? I don't know. All right, 10 minutes in, let's get started. All right, so I don't know. This is mostly gonna be like the health stuff, I think, maybe. But other things have happened, nothing major, but other things have happened. So maybe I'll go off on a tangent and talk about something else. I'm kind of all over the place. I have anxiety. My mind works faster than my mouth. And who knows where this is going to go. So, a long time ago, like, I want to say maybe 5-6 years ago, maybe 4, I started having issues with migraines, but there weren't typical migraines. Like, I've always thought of migraines as being behind the eye. The kind that I have is like the base of my skull. Let me just also say, I can't see for shit, and my head might pop in the screen. So if you're actually looking, like I've warned before in one of the unboxings, do not make any comments about my Christmas tinsel hair. I'm being festive, okay? Anyway, I'm being more goofy today, I'm finding. Wasn't my intention. I was gonna film way earlier, like right after Aiden got home. He was feeding the dogs, and my back and head were hurting. So I'm like, I'm just gonna take a little bit of a break and lay in bed before I start filming. And the next thing I know, it's over 2 hours later and I'm waking up really disoriented. So not my plan to fall asleep, but that's what happened. I don't know if it's the nap. I don't know if it's because you guys seem to like weird me, so I'm more comfortable being weird when Matt's not around. I don't know. Maybe it's because I'm like fed up and I just don't give a shit no more. I don't know. You guys know that I can talk. You know that I'm goofy, but I tend to be very like serious and shy in person at first until I really get to know people, and then that part of me comes out. So the social anxiety has been coming up a lot with filming these videos, but I'm trying to just be like, okay, these people know me and they love me, and I asked and most of them wanted to see what was going on, so I'm gonna do it for them, my friends that I love so much. Anyway, back to the story because I'm already on a tangent. The migraines were like at the base of my skull, like where the top of your neck meets your skull, and it felt like someone had buried an axe into the back of my head and was just seesawing the blade in and out. Matt took me to the emergency room for it a couple of times, and they gave me medicine and it helped, and I went home. But eventually I went to my regular doctor about it, and told her, like, everything I have at home does not work. You know, if it's a regular, it's hard because sometimes I have regular headaches and I'm like, oh, like I'm not going to take anything because I'm taking so many meds, and taking that many over the counter NSAIDs and Tylenol and stuff's not really good for you. So I'm kind of like, oh, I'm going to wait it out. If it's a regular headache, I can deal with it. But then it turns into this massive migraine, and by then, like, over the counter stuff doesn't really touch it most of the time. So went to my primary when I had a migraine because I was tired of having to go into the emergency room and sit around, and it's really loud in there. I've since learned to bring headphones with me and not plug into anything, just have the headphones on completely silent just to block out some of the noise. Because not only is it affected by noise and light, but also any kind of movement because of where it's located. Anytime I move my neck, I get a wave of nausea and I feel like I'm gonna throw up. So went to my regular doctor and told her nothing is working. The only thing that really works is this medication called Toradol that they give me at the hospital. What they do is they give Toradol, which is an anti-inflammatory. It's an NSAID like ibuprofen, but it is very much stronger, and it has a lot of potential to do a lot of damage if you use it a lot. But they give you that, and then they give you promethazine, which is for nausea. And then they give you Benadryl, and the Benadryl boosts the effect of the pain medicine, so it makes it work faster, I guess. So I go there in agony and feeling like I'm dying, and then they give me the meds, and I pass out because both the nausea med and the Benadryl make you tired. But then I wake up like an hour or two later, and I have the most energy I've ever had in my life, and I am completely fine. So I went to her, and she gave me a referral to go to a neurologist. Went to the neurologist and explained to him what's been going on, and that nothing over the counter has been working. So he tried a couple of prescription meds, and none of those worked. My primary had tried a few, and none of those worked. And right now I'm on a monthly injection that does seem to have decreased the migraines, but when I actively have a migraine, I have nothing that helps. And I've asked for that Toradol because it is in tablet form. I'm a pharmacy technician, or I was, if you didn't know that already. So we dispense that all the time. It's commonly used for people with kidney stones, and you can't use it for more than 5 days in a row. Obviously, I know that. Obviously, if I'm using it for migraines, I'm not going to be continuously using it. I take one, migraine's gone, and I don't take it again until the next migraine. So it's not something I'm consistently taking every day. And if they were to give it to me, I would obviously try to treat with something else first. And if that didn't work, then I would do that. That would be reserved for like emergencies where I feel like I need to go to the ER to get relief, because I can't afford to keep going to the ER. But anyway, when I first started going to the neuro, there was a lot of stuff going on. It was 4 years ago. It was right after Aiden's first suicidal comment where he was begging me to kill him. We also had just found out that my grandmother had cancer. I found out randomly from my cousin through Facebook because nobody called me to tell me. And then there was issues with my stepdad. He has really bad lungs and gets pneumonia a lot, and he was sick, and they thought he might have lung cancer, and that was like in the span. Aiden's thing was at around Thanksgiving, and then my grandmother and my stepdad was like within a weekend. I found out both. So I was under a lot of stress, which was just making more migraines. So I went to see the neurologist. He seemed really great at first. He took his time. Like, we had discussions. He explained things to me. He asked a lot of questions. He was great. However, as time has gone on, not so much. So if you've been following along, you know Aiden's been having a lot of behavioral and mental health issues in the past. He's been good for a while, thankfully. I'm so grateful for that. He's been good for a while. But there was a long while where there was behavior issues at school. I was getting called to pick him up at least once a week. He was getting suspended at least once a week. He would get suspended for 3 days, come back, and then he'd be there for a day or two, and then I'd get a call to pick him up, and he was suspended again. And if he wasn't suspended, then he was making suicidal comments, because he knows that that's policy in the state of Georgia, that anytime they make any kind of self-injurious comments, they must be dismissed and released from school, and there needs to be a meeting before re-entry. So every time, at least once a week, I would have to go pick him up, because he found out that if the behavior thing wasn't enough to get him out of having to do work and get sent home, then he knew he could throw out that, and that's automatic, get to go home. So I would have to leave work, and then the next day I would have to go to a meeting at school in order for him to go back and have the same conversation every week. He's seeing the psychiatrist, we're doing this, we're doing that, like same treatment that he's been getting. It was really redundant and really repetitive and really exhausting. But I was really stressed out. I also, working in pharmacy, you might not know, it is a very high stress environment. You're multitasking 6 different tasks at once. And you're dealing with people's health. So it's very important to be accurate, but it's hard to be accurate when they have you all over the place and have you helping a customer at the register at the same time as you're typing in a prescription on the screen. And then you're hopping back to fill a prescription until the next person comes up, and you're like transitioning out of so many things and on the phone while you're filling a prescription. So there's all these numbers. It's really fast paced and it can be overwhelming, and then people get upset and you're getting yelled at. So between personal life and how hectic work was, my migraine started intensifying last summer. So, well, even before that, when I first started working, it was about 3 years ago. So today is the 3-year anniversary of my grandmother passing away. And the following day I got the call from my previous employer, and we're like, hey, do you want a job? Like, do you want to come in for an interview? So I went in for the interview, got the job. And not long after that, I started having like these electrical zaps in my back, especially when I was like working drive-through and I would lean forward to give people their stuff, or at home if I was doing laundry and I was leaning forward to put clothes in the washing machine, I'd feel like an electrical zap in my back. And I don't know how to explain so many of the things that's happening to me, but it's either like getting stung by an electrically charged bee, or someone stabbing you with like an electrified syringe. So I was worried about that. There was something else that was going on. I can't remember what it was. Oh, forgetfulness. Really bad. To the point that I was doing laundry and I'd put a load in, and by the time that I finished putting the load in, I couldn't remember if I had put a Tide Pod in or not every single time. And I would go in, like, make sure you pay attention about whether you're putting this pod Tide in, like, make sure you remember so you don't have to dig all the clothes back out to see if there's a Tide Pod in there. Without fail, I would always forget. And there was a lot of other forgetfulness going on. So I talked to the neurologist, and he's like, oh, it's just because you just started working, your body's moving in ways it's not used to. There's a lot of new things on your plate, and, it's not a big deal. Okay, cool, you're my doctor, I trust you. So fast forward to this past summer when things were getting really bad with Aiden. He was really angry. He spent some time in the mental health facility, like I said in previous WIP Chat. Work was really stressful, and was it this past summer, COVID and everything. And I have no family here, so if Aiden's school is calling me saying that I need to come get him, I can't send somebody else. There is nobody else. And my boss likes to look at it like I care about my job less than my husband cares about his, but in reality, my husband is the main breadwinner for our family. We can afford for me to miss work a lot more than we can afford for him to miss work. Also, they're training him for a higher position with more authority over the team, called a coordinator, the step under manager. So he can't start leaving work every week when he's trying to get promoted. But yeah, I was having really bad headaches every day, either before or during every migraine. My neck on the left side would tense up like rock hard. Like it felt like there was a metal sheet directly under my skin because the muscle got so tight. And so I called the neuro and I told them, like, hey, the migraines are going way up in frequency. Like, I am taking naproxen 3 or 4 times a day, and technically, like, the highest prescribable dose is 600 milligrams. Over the counter is 220 milligrams. I was taking 660 milligrams every 6 hours, and I wouldn't even last the whole 6 hours. Like after 4.5, 5 hours, I was in so much pain again that I'm like counting down until I can take it again because I was in agony. And I was on a preventative medication at the time, which apparently stopped working because my stress was just through the roof. Whew. Look it. My X-Acto blade matches the kit. Anyway, don't want to cut my desk, so let me try to cut that way. So I'm like, my migraines are happening a lot more often. I still have nothing that works for me to use at home if I have a migraine. I'm having all of these neck issues. Can we maybe add some muscle relaxers? Like, what do we need to do? Because it's getting a lot worse. I was having like 7 or 8 serious migraines a month, and every single day, all day, I had a headache. It didn't help that with all the phone calls from school, I was always on like high alert, waiting for a phone call. So my anxiety was just exacerbating the whole thing because I was constantly stressed out. So yeah, they gave me a muscle relaxer, and they switched my preventative to like a blood pressure medicine. Well, I started taking the blood pressure medicine and started feeling real bad. So I called my primary, and my primary said, oh, it's probably because of this medication he has you on. They I had gone to the office and my blood pressure was a little low, so they're like, that's probably why you should probably stop taking it and switch to something else. So I called and asked to switch to something else, and they're like, well, why'd you stop taking it? And I'm like, because my primary told me to, because my blood pressure was dropping and I almost passed out. And they're like, well, that medicine was supposed to be for a muscle relaxer and it's supposed to help with the migraines. And I'm like, well, he never told me that it was a migraine medicine. The muscle relaxer, I'm sorry. The muscle relaxer that he had given me. So then he gave me the blood pressure medicine, and that's when my blood pressure was getting too low. I'm getting really confused. Sorry. So this was all last summer. The whole time I've been having these little zaps in my back, but I'd looked it up, like, what the hell is this? Because it's something I'd never experienced before, and it said MS. It's called like Lermit sign, I guess, and it's very much affiliated with MS. But I was looking through the symptoms and I didn't relate to almost any of them, so I'm like, okay, like, I don't think it's MS, and the doctor doesn't seem worried, so whatever, I'm not too concerned. Even though at this point I had been working for 2 years, my body should have adjusted to the fact that I was making these movements and stopped doing that. But it didn't. So earlier this year, no, even before that, in the fall and in the summer last year, on top of all the headaches, I started having issues with cramping. If I was in bed and woke up and stretched, my leg would like the muscle would just seize up in my calf and I wouldn't be able to move. So I was having to take muscle relaxers before work, trying to settle the muscle down so that I could be on my feet all day. Then it got to a point where if I had to go on tiptoe to reach a high shelf, or just, either at work or at home, if I had to reach something that was higher up, that I had to go on my tippy toes, that calf would seize up and start spasming really badly, and also the arches in my feet seize up, like where it feels like my arch is dislocated. It hurts so bad. So didn't really think much of it, didn't mention it to the neuro. With the whole thing with the migraines getting worse and me still not having anything at home that I could use when I actually had a migraine that would actually help me, so I could stop going to the emergency room every time, he didn't give me anything. And then he scheduled my next appointment for 6 months out with his nurse practitioner. So I'm telling him, and this was during COVID, so it was a telemed appointment, like FaceTime. He was over an hour and a half late to it. So my appointment was like at 10 o'clock and he didn't show up until sometime after 11:30. I mentioned to him again about the zaps in my back. He didn't say anything the whole time. He never looked at me. He looked like he was doing other things while we were talking. Didn't ask any questions, nothing. And so, yeah, he's just like, okay, we're gonna keep doing what we're doing. I'll give you this other muscle relaxer since the one that you were taking made you sick. I was getting really nauseous with that one. So, even with the muscle relaxer though, it wasn't causing the migraines to subside any. It was more like I would take it before bed to get drowsy and get a little bit less tightness in my neck so that I could sleep. But when it came to a migraine, it did nothing. So then I get a letter in the mail, and my next appointment is in 6 months, and it's with his nurse practitioner. So I'm like, I don't understand this. Like, I'm telling you that my symptoms are going way up in frequency and severity, and you downgrade me to your nurse practitioner and schedule me out like a regular follow-up when I'm telling you that there's a problem. And you've done nothing yet to fix that problem. So at that point, I started being like, I don't know about this guy. Really liked him at first. He was amazing at first. I don't know what happened. I tried to be like, oh, you know, it's weird with COVID and doing like these telemed appointments. Maybe he's just not comfortable in this kind of environment and he prefers in the office, and he, you know, works his best face to face. I don't know. Trying to see the good, I guess. So in December, I had an appointment with his nurse practitioner, and she was amazing. Loved her. She listened to me. She gave me options. She's like, here's what we can do. If this medication doesn't work, like, you can always call and we can try this other one. So she really seemed like she wanted to help, and she really listened, where I wasn't getting that from him. So the cramps that I was getting in my legs was while I was working, and I'm like, oh, you know, maybe it's because I'm working too hard and from being on my feet all day. Like, I never really thought too much of it because I'm getting older. Things happen. Didn't put it together. Nothing. Just like, oh, I'm getting older. I'm on my feet all day. Like, of course my muscles are going to be mad at me. So I stopped working, because if you watch the WIP Chats about Aiden, you know all about that. I stopped working and have been home. Even at home, I would wake up in the morning and stretch, and my calf would start spasming. There was one time I woke up in the middle of the night in so much pain, like I could have sworn that I had a blood clot or something in my leg. I was crying. Like, it woke up Matt, who's usually a heavy sleeper. He's very proud of the fact that he once slept through a tree falling on his house when he was a kid. Like, he's a heavy sleeper. So I was in so much pain and making so much noise that I woke him up. Zap started becoming more persistent, and I started getting this feeling like I was vibrating. How far am I? Okay, maybe I'll be able to tell this whole thing in an hour. So my whole body felt like I was vibrating, like I feel like I'm radioactive. It wasn't that bad before, but I'm like, this is a weird sensation. And I thought maybe it was something that was linked to anxiety. So I've asked other friends who struggle with anxiety, like, do you ever get so anxious that it feels like your entire body is just like vibrating? No one knew what I was talking about. It must have sounded crazy. But in June, I was in, and again, I'm not putting anything together. I'm just thinking, you know, I'm getting older. Oh, this cramping sucks, but it's normal. This happened, but the doctor said it's fine. Like, I'm not really worried about any of it. So in early June, I was in Laura's live for her birthday, and I was diamond painting at my desk, but I have a much easier time. I don't do it anymore, but I was like, oh, it'll be easier for me if I have the laptop on my desk as well, because I can type a lot faster on my laptop, and I'm not constantly having to pick up my phone and take it out of the arm in order to type stuff. So I had my laptop out while I was diamond painting, and anytime I wanted to post something, I'd have to kind of shift to where the laptop was, and I suddenly felt like I pulled something in my back, and I was like, oh no, that is not good. My lower back was hurting really bad. So again, I'm like, oh shit, I pulled a muscle. This sucks. But within a few days, Aiden had his next ABA session. For those of you who don't know what ABA is, because I haven't done a WIP Chat, I don't think, since he started this ABA. It's applied behavior analysis. It is a type of therapy that they do for children on the spectrum or with sensory issues. I have been trying to get Aiden into ABA since he was really little, but our insurance wouldn't cover it, and they recently covered it. We were on a wait list for a while, but in May they finally called us and they're like, hey, we've got a spot. And I'm like, they're like, do you perform morning or afternoon? And I'm like, whatever you have, I'll make it work. I've noticed a huge difference in him almost immediately. Like, he's matured so much since then, and he's become even more empathetic. Like, there'd be days where I'd have a bad day and I'd be in a bad mood, and we'd go to the grocery store and he would like pick up all the bags and put them in the cart, and I'm like, you're taking the bags? And he's like, yeah, like, I can tell that you're having a rough day and I wanted to do something nice that would help make you feel better a little bit. This is something he never would have done before. He started being more communicative. A lot of the anger was like completely gone, and it's like the Aiden that I always knew was back, because when he was angry, it was a different Aiden that I didn't know. So yeah, this ABA has been a godsend. The only issue with that, and it's not enough of an issue that I would ever stop him going to ABA. Well, there's a couple. One is our insurance requires us to have a copay even after we've hit the deductible. So our insurance before would have a deductible, and once you hit that deductible, they would pay everything in full. The insurance now has a deductible, so you pay everything out of pocket until you hit that certain amount, and then after that you still have to pay a percentage of everything. So he was doing ABA 3 times a week, and our portion was like $35, so we'd have to pay over $100 every week for ABA services. But I will pay anything if it'll help him, especially in school. He has a lot of behavior issues at school, and they've been able to log into the program that he uses at school and simulate his classroom environment. So he's on the computer working on his actual schoolwork. There's other kids being disturbances and loud and doing things that actually happen in his classroom, and they're working with him on, you know, how to stay calm, how to tell that you're getting frustrated, and how to verbalize that you need a break or, you know, you need help. Aiden would just tend to get frustrated and do little signs that he was frustrated, but let it build and build and build until he kind of hit a breaking point and snapped. So they're working with him, and they'd see him like start like or doing something, and they're like, hey, you seem a little frustrated. Do you need some help? Do you need a break? So what they're doing is working with him so that he will begin to recognize in himself the signs of, okay, I'm getting frustrated, so maybe I should ask for this accommodation before it gets to that point where it's so bad that I have to pick him up. It's been amazing. Like I said, he's been on summer break. He just went back to school. And during summer break, unfortunately, he couldn't access the program from school, so they haven't been able to work on it too much. But they have different chapters, so they're skill steps. So it'll be like working together in a group, and they have these different skill steps, and they'll talk about the skill steps. And then They'll, you know, have conversation about each specific one and why it's important. Then they will do role playing so that they can model those skill steps. And then they kind of allow for opportunities in the natural environment with the other peers that are there for him to do these things. And at first they'll prompt. If he's not following the skill steps, they'll be like, hey, what skill step could you use here? And they'll prompt it. But eventually, over time, he will hopefully learn, and just it becomes routine that these skill steps are what he does. So before anyone says anything, I am not trying to change my son. I love my son exactly how he is. He is weird like me. I ain't so down with the shit he watches on YouTube because it's really weird and not at all funny, but he thinks it's funny. But yeah, he knows that he has autism. I'm not keeping it a secret. I've tried to make it something that he's proud of. So no, I'm not trying to change him. I'm not trying to make him normal. I'm trying to help him adapt and learn how to function in a world that's not built for him. You know, you can have all your quirks, you can have your special interests and all the other things that come with autism, but in order to make friends and have healthy relationships, like, he needs to learn these things that don't come naturally to him. And all of us have that. We all have things that we need to learn that don't come naturally to us. We all can improve on something about ourselves every day. So I'm not trying to change Aiden. I'm trying to create a happier Aiden that doesn't struggle so much. And he knows that, and he's totally down for ABA. He's always excited to go. He's like, so what are we working on today? And like, he wants to be part of the team. It's not like, oh, they're telling me what to do, this is what's happening. Like, he wants to be involved in all of it. He wants to know how he did, you know, if he was successful in an attempt or whatever. They've told me, like, he is very motivated by doing well. Like, he wants to do well. And when you praise him for that, like, he is very motivated by that. So he is enjoying it. He's making new friends there, which makes me feel really good. So anyway, ABA. The only problem with ABA is, one, it's kind of a lot on the finances, but like I said, if it helps, I will sell my kidney if I have to, if it helps him survive this life in a happier way. Another thing is, this place is like an hour away from our house. And it's usually like, when he went in the morning, it was from 8:15 until 12:15, so it was 4 hours. Now he's going in the afternoon, and it's 1 o'clock to 4:30. And like I said, it's an hour from my house, so we have to leave an hour before, drop him off, and then in 3.5 or 4 hours, I need to pick him up. So my options are stay out there for the 3.5, 4 hours, or I can drive home, but then that's me driving an hour there, an hour home, being home for like an hour and a half or so, drive back out there, and then drive another hour back. So that's 4 hours of driving back and forth, or I can just hang out there. There have been times where I have come home, like when I'm really wasn't feeling well, I would come home so I could nap in my bed. But for the most part, I stay out there. I used to go to McDonald's and sit at McDonald's, but I don't want to eat McDonald's all the time, and I don't feel right sitting in there if I'm not buying stuff. And people would, like, I'd be sitting there and I'd be watching YouTube videos while I was diamond painting and eating, and people would keep coming up and see that I have headphones on, but they'd always want to come talking to me, and I wasn't feeling entirely social, and I'm like, pause the video, have to take the headphones off and make small talk with strangers who were like, probably went home, they're like, there was this weird girl doing some shit at McDonald's. I have no clue what she was doing, but she was just sitting there for hours. So I decided, you know, I have a lap desk. We have a Jeep. I'm like, let me just like put the back seats down and hang out in the trunk. Like, I'll have a blanket, and I have a comforter to sit on. I have 2 pillows, one that I put behind my back, one that I sit on top of. And then there's a blanket in case it's cold or I just want to feel snuggly. And I keep my smaller lap desk there in the car, and I just sit in the parking lot and diamond paint and watch YouTube videos the whole time he's in his session. I mean, sometimes I'll leave and I'll go grab something to eat, or I'll go to the grocery store and right before it's time to pick him up, to pick up some stuff real quick, but for the most part I'm sitting in the parking lot. It gets very, very uncomfortable. So right after Laura's live where I felt like I pulled my back, Aiden had ABA. Okay, yeah, I'm not going to be done in an hour. Sorry guys, this is going to be a long one. Because I don't want to do another 2-parter. So, what was I saying? Oh, this release paper was from Bev. I got it from her shop, like right before she decided she wasn't going to do them anymore. And I love them and I want more. Okay, so right after the back injury, sitting in the car while Aiden was at ABA was very, very unpleasant. At this point, the electrical zaps, like it was always usually on the top left of my spine, like between my shoulder blade and my spine. It was always in that one area that I would get it. But after hurting my lower back, that I thought I pulled my lower back, it started happening all over my back constantly. I was still having cramps when my back would start spasming. When I would ever get those electrical zaps, then muscles in my legs would start twitching uncontrollably. Day or night, all the time. On this particular day, the guy that Aiden was working with had gotten food from this place called Captain D's. It's like a seafood chain. And they had chicken tenders and french fries, and Aiden can't resist, so he asked if he could try it, and they were very nice, and they let him try it, and he really liked it. So at the end of his session, the therapist that he was working with was telling me like, oh, you know, we had some Captain D's and he asked for some fries and he really liked them, and he told me to tell you about this restaurant so you guys can go, and that it's in this town called Pooler, which is kind of like on our way home. Like, we have to take the interstate to come home, and it's one of the exits right off the interstate in between. So we try to avoid Pooler because they've added so many things into that area. They keep putting more hotels, more apartments, more restaurants. They have a Tanger outlet. The problem is this city has not made any wider roads or anything to accommodate all this new traffic that's being created. And the minute it rains, this whole town floods. It's called Pooler, and I'm pretty sure it's because it turns into a swimming pool every time it rains because it floods. People don't know how to drive, so they're coming off of the interstate and blocking Like they're turning onto the street and they have a red light on the street. So they're just sitting there blocking. And then the other people who are trying to go straight, they get a green light, but they can't go anywhere because the people getting off the interstate have completely blocked the intersection. People don't know how to drive. It's really bad, especially in Pooler. So we tried to avoid it, but my back was hurting. I wasn't planning on cooking after sitting in the car for all those hours and thinking I had pulled a muscle in my lower back. So I was like, hey, you know, I'll go with Aiden and get some Captain D's. Aiden is very picky, part of being on the spectrum. So he liked the fries. He hadn't tried the chicken, but he wanted to try it. And he made me promise he would try it sometime. So my thinking is, we've had so many times that we've gone to a restaurant and Matt has really, really, really enjoyed it and Aiden can't stand it. And then we never go again because Aiden won't eat anything there. So I'm like, let me take Aiden and make sure Aiden likes it before we bring Matt, and Matt gets all into it, and then we never can eat it again because Aiden doesn't really like it. I didn't know at the time that Matt had already had this restaurant and he really liked it. But we got that for Aiden, and then a little bit further down the street there's this place called the British Pie Society. So they make all different kinds of meat pies and desserts, and it's all British foods. And they make different sizes. You can get like a personal pie, or you can get a larger pie for the family. We haven't had that in a while. So they had like a beer and ale, like ale and steak something pie. So I was like, cool, like I'll get Ian this Captain D so he can try it, and Matt and I will have some of this pie that we haven't had in a long time for dinner. But like I said, I was in a lot of pain. Captain D's was the last stop. And sitting in that drive-through, my entire body was like electrical shocks. Like it felt like my body was burning from so many shocks going through it. My muscles were spasming and aching, and we still had like another 20-minute drive to get home. So we get home, and every step that I take walking into the door, my leg muscles were so tight that it was like on the brink of spasming, and I was like, I am not sure I'm gonna be able to make it to the door without falling, because my legs gonna like start cramping really badly. So I was in a lot of pain. I had an upcoming appointment with a neurologist, but I asked Matt, I'm like, I don't know what to do. Like, I'm in a lot of pain. Something is wrong. The vibrating was all over, and it was so intense. Like, I'd be laying in bed with him and I'd be like, come like cuddle up to me to see if you can feel it, because I feel like I'm vibrating so bad that it's like, I feel like to other people it will feel like I'm shivering, like I'm in Antarctica, freezing cold. Like that's how intense the shaking is, to the point that sometimes I go lay in bed and it feels like my entire mattress is moving, because I'm getting the external sensation of vibration, because the internal sensation of vibration is that intense. And I'm like, this is not normal. Like, to feel vibrating through my entire body like this, to have electrical shocks in my back and have my legs start twitching uncontrollably. Like I have absolutely no control over my body right now. Brain fog was really bad. And then there was a while that you guys all know, I was just sleeping. I would sleep at night, and then I would wake up at like 8 o'clock in the morning, and then at like 10 o'clock I would take a nap for a couple hours, wake up at 12, and then at 3 o'clock I would take a nap for a couple hours, and wake up at 5, and then at 7 o'clock I would take another nap for another couple hours, and then Like, it was to the point I was sleeping like 15 to 18 hours a day. I was so exhausted. And that was actually one of the first signs. Like, when Aiden was doing ABA, there wasn't any pain, but I was sleeping a lot. And Matt was really worried. He was upset, but he was also worried. And he's like, I don't know what's going on, because, you know, I was thinking maybe the depression is coming back, but every time I talk to you, you don't act depressed. I'm like, I'm not depressed. I'm just exhausted all the time. Like, I don't know what it is, but something's not right. I don't feel right. And then once that back pain happened, it all like just came together. Everything that I had been dealing with and blowing off for years started happening all together. And I'm like, okay, well, maybe this is all connected. So remember, I had looked up the electrical zaps a couple years ago when I told the doctor about it, like 3 years ago. And he was like, no, it's fine. It's just because you started working again. I'm like, well, I'm not working anymore and I'm still getting them. But anyway, electrical zaps, looked it up, stuff about MS came up. And I'm like, I don't have most of these symptoms, so I'm okay. Like, I'm not gonna be like, oh my God, I have it, because I have one symptom. But the vibrating was so intense, where it was so disorienting. I couldn't sleep. Spoiler alert, and Matt might cut this out, I don't know, but I told him the other day that there was one night I woke up in the middle of the night and it felt like our bed was vibrating so bad, and I was half asleep and confused, and I thought he was jerking off in bed right beside me, like jerking off hard, going at it, because the bed was shaking so much. And I'm like, is this guy really freaking jerking off in bed? And I look over and he's sound asleep. It's all inside me, but nobody can feel it but me. Like, you can't feel on the outside that I'm vibrating. So had an upcoming neurology appointment, and I'm like, I don't know if I should wait until the appointment next week, or like go to the primary and see what she thinks. So Matt was like, I think, you know, with the way things are, he was really worried. I was really worried. And he's like, I think you should just go to the primary. Like, what's the worst that can happen? Just go to the primary and see what they say. So I went to the primary, and they were like, everything you're telling us. And well, before I went to the primary, I have a bad habit of, when I go to the doctor, I forget to mention symptoms when I'm sick. And then I'm like, shit, what if that symptom is something that would have led them to something? You know what I mean? Like, watching House and stuff like that, I'm like, every symptom is important. There could be one symptom that might indicate something to them. So I took it upon myself to write notes of all of the symptoms I've been having and how long they've lasted. So yeah, I was also having dizziness when I would get up out of bed. I would kind of like stumble like a drunk person. There'd be heat sensations in my back. My legs sometimes feel like there's a boa constrictor around my legs, where it feels like something is wrapping them tight and they're really hot. Issues with my vision. Let me see. My hands would seize up or twitch, and I dropped my diamond painting pen, or spill drills everywhere, or drop the dishes that I was drying and putting away. So yeah, I wrote down every symptom, and I'm like, here's everything in one place so they know exactly what's happening. So she looked at it and she's like, everything that you're showing me is all like neuro. So she's like, I'm gonna help him out, and I will send for a head CT or a head MRI, and send another referral to the neurologist, so that when you go to your appointment next week, he knows, you know, everything that happened here and all my notes. He'll have everything. So I called after leaving there, and her not really doing anything besides referring me to the neurologist that I wasn't really excited about seeing because I wasn't sure if it was him or the nurse practitioner, but I was dreading it was going to be him because I knew he wouldn't listen to me. So I called the neurologist's office and I explained what was going on. I'm like, I have an appointment next week, but I was wondering if there's any cancellations or anything where I could be squeezed in sooner. And they said, oh no, your appointment is with the doctor and he's booked up all the way through September. And this was in early June. So I'm like, oh, okay, cool. So I just have to wait until my appointment. For a long time too, like I was experiencing things but not saying anything because I think we've all had issues where we've been concerned and talked to a doctor and they just blow you off and don't really do anything. So I'm like, why even talk about it? Because I already know they're not going to do anything. And this was around the time that I posted on Instagram asking if anyone knew anything about MS because the vibrating was so bad. I looked that up and that also brought up MS. And looking through the symptoms this time, I had almost every single one. So I was like, I don't know what you need to do to get diagnosed with MS. Like, is there tests or is it one of those things where they rule out a bunch of other things and then they're like, oh, okay, it's MS. I wasn't sure. So I asked if anyone had any experience with talking to their doctor about MS. Several people reached out to me, including one of my real life friends. Her mom has MS. So I spoke to her mom on the phone. I told her everything I've been dealing with, and she's like, I can't relate to the whole body vibrating, but everything else, it sounds like MS. And all of this started right after we went to that first baseball game that we had bought 5 season passes for, like to 5 different games, not 5 passes to every game. And it was hot, and this happened like 2 days after, and apparently MS and heat do not do well together. So there's that. And then I said something about migraines, and she's like, oh my God, yes, I get migraines so bad. And sometimes the doctors don't believe me, but they like, there's a different kind of migraine that's an MS migraine. Like, it's not a normal migraine. And I'm like, back of the skull, at the same time that she says it usually happens at the back of the skull. So I'm like, that explains a lot. Like, I already suspected MS, but now these weird migraines that I've been having that don't react to normal medications that they try to give me for normal migraines. If I do have MS and it's an MS migraine, it has to be treated differently because it's not the same kind of migraine. So that just further like validated that maybe I need to talk to the doctor about this. Knowing this doctor and finding out that I would be seeing him and not his nurse practitioner, I brought Matt with me. Twofold reason. One, it's an hour away, and after the amount of pain that I had been in driving Aiden home from ABA a few days prior, I was like, I don't know if I can do that drive. So Matt came with me so he could drive and also to be my backup. Doctor comes in. I give him the notebook. He looks at the notebooks. He talks into a recorder. He doesn't ask any questions. He just looks at the notebook. I feel like having this actually hurt me with him. He said something, I forgot what it's called now, but I had told him about like loss of the muscle control and how they start twitching. And he said myoclonic tics, that's what it is. And I've heard that term before because Aiden has them, and they usually occur like just as you're falling asleep. He did ask me, is it only at bedtime or during the day? And I'm like, it happens most at bedtime, but it can happen, like it does happen throughout the day. It just becomes more frequently when I'm laying down. To the point that I'm laying down about to fall asleep and my head will start shaking no by itself and wake me back up. So he's like, oh yeah, myoclonic tics. And I'm like, that's not what this is though, because it happens all day and it's connected to the zaps in my back. It's not just a tic. Like, there's a connection. He completely disregarded me, told me that I need to just drink more water and exercise more and I'll be fine. And I knew that I was being blown off, like I expected to be. And I was hoping Matt would say something like, no, I'm worried too. There's something going on. Show that he was also concerned, because I felt like the doctor was looking at me like I was just a crazy, dramatic woman who was blowing things out of proportion and making things up. Matt didn't say a word. And even at one point I was like, even my husband's concerned, because I am so tired and fatigued and the brain fog is so bad that I'm just sleeping all day. Like, I'll wake up for an hour and then need a nap. And Matt still didn't say anything. So the doctor's like, yeah, you just need to drink more water, exercise. I don't see any signs of MS, even though I hit almost everything on the checklist. Matt had looked at the checklist, and he knows that I have almost every symptom on the checklist. And he's like, but I don't think you have MS, but I'll order these tests if it'll make you feel better about it. So, reading between the lines, he doesn't think I have MS. He thinks I'm making shit up, and he'll order the tests because he knows that they're going to come back negative, so that way I have some peace of mind that I'm not actually sick. I was livid. I kind of got mad at Matt on the way home, because he's like, I'm not saying I agree with the doctor, but with the exercising and stuff. And I'm like, how the fuck am I supposed to exercise when I'm sleeping all day? It's not gonna happen. I don't even know if I feel comfortable walking. I don't even like taking a shower because I feel like I'm gonna fall down. I'm not gonna go out and exercise, and I don't know what's wrong. So what if I make it worse? So anyway, doctors ordering some tests to make me feel better about it, not expecting anything to be wrong. So first is the MRI, because even though my primary had ordered an MRI, by the time they finally got to me with approval to make an appointment, I had already seen the neurologist, and he has an MRI machine in the office. And I was like, I'd rather just go to his office and do it there, because he gets the results right away. I don't have to worry about getting a disc to bring to him. So did the MRI and never heard anything, but they called me to schedule another test called an EMG. Yeah, this is gonna be long. I'm sorry, guys. So they called to schedule an EMG, and I was like, well, I have you on the phone. Like, I had an MRI and I haven't heard anything. Do you have results back yet? So they went and checked, and they said the MRI was fine. Also, the MRI that he ordered was without contrast only. And both my friend's mom and everything that I had seen online says, in order to really see if there's MS, you need to do a MRI without contrast and one with contrast in order to be able to see the scar damage. I don't know. Yeah, the scars or whatever on the nerves, spinal column, whatever it is. I don't even know what I'm talking about. I'm talking out of my ass right now because it's 11 o'clock. And I've taken not sleeping pills, anxiety, and a muscle relaxer. But anyway, sorry guys, I'm all over the place. So they're like, okay, the MRI is fine. Don't see nothing. And I'm like, okay, well, I had asked him when he said he was just going to do without contrast. I'm like, don't you need to do it with the contrast too? And he's like, no, we don't need to do that. If we see something without contrast, then we'll order one with contrast. And I'm like, okay, from what I've been told, that's not how it works, but whatever. So I did that. They scheduled the EMG. I asked about the MRI, and they said the MRI was fine. So going for the EMG, and an EMG is kind of like an EKG or EEG. It's a nerve conduction test. So what they do is they put the little sticky pads on parts of your body and send an electrical current through it and see how your muscles react, like how long it takes that signal to go from one end of the muscle to the other. There's a mathematical formula of how long it's supposed to take. So they do that. And I was a little nervous because I had seen somewhere where it said it was painful. Not really. The actual pain that I have every day with the electrical zaps is much worse than the signals that they were conducting. But that's the first part, is with the little pads, and they have a technician come in and do that part, and then the doctor himself comes in and does the second part. And the second part is when they actually insert a needle into different muscles and send an electrical current through that. And it kind of, I'm not sure what it is, but it's kind of sounds like an ultrasound, like when you go listen to a heartbeat or whatever. There's just a whole lot of static coming out of the machine when the needle is in. So he did a few points on my arm. Everything was fine there. And when he walked in, he had someone else with him, and he introduced her as a psych resident. I am not an expert on the medical field, but this is a teaching hospital that they work through. But I've always thought like residents aren't students, really. And she was a psych resident, so I'm not sure why she would be shadowing a neurologist when that's not her field. Part of me thinks that the doctor really thought that I was just a hypochondriac. Ooh, 1 second. I just got a thing for low battery, so I'm gonna plug in real quick. Okay, hi, here we go, plugged in. So yeah, I'm not sure why a psych resident would be following a neurologist. I think he thought I was a hypochondriac or had Munchausen's or something, and he was expecting the test to also be completely fine, and he was just gonna like, hey, maybe you can talk to the psych lady now and check out you're crazy because you think you're sick and there's nothing wrong. And I had even told Matt while we were waiting for all these tests, I'm like, if both of them come back completely normal, like have me institutionalized somewhere, because there's no way that I'm feeling all of these things and there's nothing wrong. Like, it's so intense. It's not like a mild little zap or like one little twitch. It's intense. So I'm like, there's no way that I'm feeling all of these things and it's not real. So like I said, he did my arm and my hand and everything there was fine. He did my foot and everything there was fine. And then he got to my calf. And like I said before, my calf is the area that always spasms and cramps really bad. So he gets there and he puts the needle in like normal, and then he starts like moving the needle around, like, and I'm like, oh, you know, how weird is it that he's having trouble getting a reading or whatever on the one part that he's tested that gives me frequent problems. So he's moving it all around, and it's like I started to realize that he was desperately trying to make it do or read something that it was not doing. And even the psych resident said that doesn't sound like the rest of all of the other ones. So he's like, yeah, okay, well, since there's stuff there, let me check these other couple of areas. he went into my upper thigh. That one did hurt quite a bit. I don't know if it's because it's related to the calf or what, but that one was not fun. But yeah, he's like, finishes the test. And he's like, well, have you ever had back surgery before? Well, first he's like, I think that you have a grossly herniated disc in your lumbar spine. And I'm like, okay. And part of me is like, I am not trusting a word you say because you've been telling me that I'm making things up and telling me that just water and exercise is going to fix it. So I'm not trusting your gut feeling without any science behind what you're saying. There's no evidence yet. But he's like, we're going to order a lumbar spine MRI because I think that you have a grossly herniated disc. And I'm like, okay. And he says, have you ever had back surgery before? And I said, no. Like, really confused. And he's like, well, good. Let's hope that you don't have to. In a way that made it sound like he thinks I'm going to have to as he's walking out of the room. So he finishes that sentence and shuts the door behind him and just completely leaves. And I'm like, wow. Like, I'm not sure what your intention of ending the visit like that was, but all you've done is left me anxious about possibly needing to have back surgery. We don't even know anything yet. Why are you telling me this? And I kind of got the vibe that he was kind of pissed that he was proved wrong. He was thinking I was going to be totally fine, and he did find something going on, and had been blowing me off. So they scheduled me for the lumbar spine MRI, which was supposed to have been today. Did not happen today. We'll get to that. So, they have to get pre-certification from the insurance company and get their approval before they can schedule, before I can have the MRI, but they already put it on a schedule for a couple weeks out. They're like, this insurance is really good, and they get back to us really fast. We should have everything we need by then. So after that, I started taking Aiden to ABA again, because we did take a break, because I'm like, if they're doing any kind of testing and it's a last minute, hey, you've got to drop you in the schedule, I didn't want ABA to interfere with me having all of these tests done ASAP to find out what's wrong. So driving to MRI to there and sitting in the car and how much I was sleeping, it just wasn't safe. So we had taken a break from that. So after the EMG, and they scheduled this day and this time already for the lumbar spine, I'm like, okay, let's get Aiden back into ABA. I think, let's try swinging it again. I'm having so much trouble opening these. Normally you just go like this, but I don't know if my hands are oily. Anyway, okay, so let's try getting him back into ABA. School's going to be getting started soon. I want him to prepare as much as possible, because that's where most of the behavior issues is. So started ABA. And by the end of sitting in the car for 4 hours, well, much longer, I'd leave the house at 12. We wouldn't get home until 5:30. So 5.5 hours of sitting in the car. I'd be in agony and come straight to bed every time we got home. I had nothing for pain. When this all first started, I did have some tramadol that was left over from one of the times I went to urgent care for a migraine. The doctor gave me a 5-day supply of tramadol. This was months and months ago. For tramadol, and it did nothing for migraines, but it is a pain reliever that I've used before and works fairly well for me. So with all the pain. I'm like, this is just sitting in the medicine cabinet, and I've used it before when I had a car accident and issues with my back. So I was using that mainly at the end of the night with all of my normal nighttime meds, just because it was enough to take the edge off that I would be able to fall asleep. Because by the end of the day, I was in so much pain that I would have trouble sleeping. So I'm like, if I take these medicines normally and the tramadol, which is fine to take, but combined, it would make me drowsy enough that I could just sleep through the pain. I ran out of those. Maybe like a month into everything going on. So I had like a 5-day supply, 20 tablets, and it lasted me a month. Like, I'm not over the top using it. If I'm not having a really bad pain day, I wouldn't take it. So, after the EMG came back that there was something going on, and there was actual physical proof that something is going on with me, that I am having pain. Sitting in the car is real rough. Maybe I can, let me make sure I got the right color. Okay. Let me make sure that I can get some medication just for days that we have ABA, that I'm sitting in the car for that long, that I'm hurting really bad. And most people don't know that much about medicine, so you might not know. Tramadol is a controlled substance, but it's a milder controlled substance. And like, when I first started working in pharmacy, it wasn't a controlled substance at all. It's not one of the most common ones for abuse. You can become dependent on it, but I only take it if I need it. I'm the same way with my anxiety medicine, which is also a controlled substance. Like, the doctor wrote it for me to take 3 times a day, but I never take it 3 times a day, because if I don't need it, I'm not taking it, because I don't want to be addicted to it. I would the same way with pain meds. If I can manage the pain, I'm not going to take anything. If I think just ibuprofen will be enough to get me through, then I'll just take the ibuprofen. But on days where it's really bad and I really need to take the edge off, I'd like to have a backup pain medicine. So I called the neurologist's office and I said, hey, I'm just leaving a message because I just failed this EMG. I'm having a lot of issues with pain in my back and my legs. And I've been using this old bottle of tramadol from urgent care, but I ran out, and I was wondering if there's any way I could get a prescription for that, so that after sitting in the car for 5.5 hours and being in pain, I have something that'll take the edge off. I'm not asking for morphine or Oxycontin or any of that crazy stuff. Like, I would totally get it if I'm calling and I'm like, hey, give me the good stuff, But I'm asking for like the bare minimum of the whole pain thing. So the nurse calls me back and she's like, we don't do pain medication. Like, we only do muscle relaxers and anti-inflammatories. And I'm like, okay, well, anti-inflammatories are doing nothing and I already have muscle relaxers. She's like, you'd have to call your primary. So I called my primary and let them know what was going on. And they left a note for the nurse practitioner, because I usually see the nurse practitioner there. And they call me back and they say, well, she can't do it. Like, that's why we referred you to neuro in the first place, is because she can't prescribe pain medication long term. What we can do is we can send you a referral for pain management. And I'm like, sure. Like, I just need something. I, at this point, don't care who gives it to me. I don't understand why it's so hard to get tramadol. Also, being a pharmacy technician, I completely understand that addiction and abuse is a huge issue. I also know that there is software called the PMP, And in the PMP, you are tracked. So your name, date of birth is tracked with all of the controlled substances that you fill, the quantity you fill, like the day's supply, and where and the date that you filled it. So that way, if you are using multiple pharmacies or going to different doctors and getting the same med from them, they have a way to find out that people are doctor shopping, which is what that term is. But like, they can look at, like, they're acting like I'm a drug addict. I'm totally not. I'm not asking for anything super strong. They could look at the PMP and see, like, I haven't had any pain medicine in the longest. I do get anxiety meds that are a controlled substance, but they can see that half of the time that it gets filled, more than half the time that it gets filled, I don't even pick it up. And I'm like, you can put it back because I have plenty, because I don't use it 3 times a day. So they can see that I'm not a person that's abusing meds. You have proof from the EMG and me failing it and you finding something wrong and maybe needing to have back surgery. Obviously, you know I'm in pain. So I'm like, sure, pain management, whatever. Because at this point, I'm like, I can't even go to urgent care, because if I go to urgent care and say, hey, here's everything that's going on, like I failed this test and they're doing an MRI to find out exactly what's going on in my spine, but they're not giving me anything for pain, that makes me look like a drug addict. It's a red flag. Like, why would you not give someone pain medicine unless they have some kind of addiction issue? Which I don't. Well, I'm like, I'm not even gonna go in and say it, because that's immediately what he's gonna think. Like, I already know he's not gonna do it. It's gonna make him uncomfortable, because he's gonna think they're not giving it to her because she's a drug addict, so I'm not gonna give it to her either, so it's pointless. So they suggested the pain management, and asked if I wanted a referral, and I said sure. And I'm like, it's kind of crazy, because most people who go to pain management get the really strong stuff. I don't even want that. I definitely don't want that. There's one medication called gabapentin that's for nerve pain. That's not a controlled substance, and I'm even willing to try that. Like, I just need something that helps on those days. So pain management finally called me, I believe it was last week. And they're like, oh, they take a report and they send the file to the doctor, and the doctor decides whether or not they want to take you on as a patient. And I'm like, okay. And I said something about like medication or whatever. It was like, the main reason I wanted to see him is because of pain issues from the stuff with my neurologist. Like, do you want my neurologist information so you can get the info from him of what's going on? And I said something about medication, and she's like, oh no, we don't do medication. We do like injections, and I think she said disc ablation. And she's like, is that okay? Like, do you still want to see him? And I was like, sure. I don't understand why it's so hard to get tramadol when you know that I'm having pain. So I was like, yeah, sure. But in my head, I'm like, I'm not going to let him do any of these procedures until we know exactly what's wrong. Because first of all, I don't trust my doctor's opinion that it's a grossly herniated disc, because his opinion in the first place was that I had nothing. Not only that, but I don't know where it's located, if it is a herniated disc. And I'm not going to let someone go blindly putting injections or doing some shit called ablations, which doesn't sound good, in my back when they don't know what they're targeting. And when I had the EMG and the doctor was talking about scheduling the MRI, and he said, they're probably going to ask you to do physical therapy. And he's like, do you want to go ahead and start that, or do you want to wait? And I said, I'd prefer to wait until after the MRI. Reason being, how are they going to do physical therapy and fix my back if they don't know what's wrong with my back? What's to say that the doctor, because a lot of the pain actually stems from the middle of my back. Like, it seems to be the center of my back is where, and everything started at the top of my back. So I'm not sure if it's actually lower lumbar. I don't know where it's located. That's just what the doctor suspected based on the EMG muscle, like my calf muscle. So I'm like, I'd prefer to wait. 2 reasons. I want to know where the physical therapist needs to be focusing their attention, because if they're focusing their attention on the wrong area and further compress where the actual problem is, that's just going to cause even more damage to me. And I'm already pissed off because I told you about these back zaps and all these things a few years ago, and you completely blew me off then too. And now you're telling me I might have to have surgery. And if you had just listened back then and done something back then, maybe we wouldn't be in the boat that I need to have invasive surgery. So if I have to have surgery, I'm going to be mad because you didn't listen to me. I knew what I was talking about. Anyway, so I was like, well, we're going to wait because I want them to know where they're supposed to be focusing, what exercises are going to be best for what the injury is. And also, Aiden was just getting ready to go back to school. We have ABA. We had just started going back to ABA, and he used to go in the mornings before we took the break. And then once he came back, he started going in the afternoons, and I wasn't sure if they were going to switch him back to morning or keep him in the afternoon. So I'm like, just right now, trying to schedule physical therapy is going to be weird. Like, I need to figure out what's going on with everything else and where it will fit in my day. So fast forward to Friday. I had a bill from the neurologist, and it was for like $27. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure that I paid this when I checked in for the MRI, because it told me I had a balance, and I just paid on the website when I was checking in online. So I'm like, I'm not sure if this is an old bill or this is from when I came in for the MRI or when I came in for the EMG. Like, maybe it's a new bill for the same amount. So I called and no one answered, left a message. This was on Friday while Aiden was at ABA. So at almost 5 o'clock, we're driving home, and she finally calls me back. And I'm like, hey, I'm really sorry. It's a bad time, though. I'm driving. Like, I can't get my card out right now to pay you. And I was like, I'll call on Monday. Then I was like, wait, actually, I have an MRI scheduled for Wednesday. Can I just pay when I come in for the MRI, or pay when I check in for the MRI like I did last time? Because it turned out that the 27 was already paid, but they have another one for 50 for the MRI that I did. So I was like, can I just pay that when I'm checking in for the MRI? And she's like, I don't see you on the schedule until December. And I'm like, no, like, they definitely scheduled me for an MRI on Wednesday morning, the 11th. And she looks and she's like, I don't see you on there. So you might want to call them on Monday and find out, like, what's going on, why you're not on there. So I'm like, you gotta be freaking kidding me. Like, I stood there while you scheduled it. How did you not put it in the computer? So I called on Monday, and I'm like, I'm not sure what's going on. Actually, they called me because Matt was sleeping, so I couldn't call them yet. But they called me to tell me the results of the MRI. This is the 3rd time that they called to tell me the results of the MRI when I've already had them for a while now. But they apparently don't know how to keep track of their record. So they're like, hey, did you hear about the MRI, the first MRI? And did you go over the results? And I'm like, yes. And you've called me like 3 times, and I've told you that I already know that everything is fine with that MRI. Like, why Why do you keep calling? But since I have you on the phone, I was going to call you today anyway, because I called billing on Friday and I said something about an appointment this week, and she said there's nothing. And she's like, hold on, let me look. And she's like, I don't see anything. Wait, hold on. And she's like, it says it was canceled. And then she calls someone else over. And she's like, hey, what does this mean? So the other lady looks at it. And apparently my insurance hadn't yet approved the MRI. So they just went ahead and canceled it, but never told me. So I'm glad that I called about this bill, because otherwise I wouldn't have known that there wasn't an MRI to go to, and I would have driven all the way out there for nothing. So they're like, oh, they haven't approved it yet, but the MRI will not be on Wednesday, but once they get the approval, they'll call you and let you know. So they called the next day, on Tuesday. And they're like, so the insurance denied the MRI? And she's like, we have a couple of options here. You can either self-pay, which was like $200 and something, which is a lot less than I would have expected an MRI to cost, but still more than I can swing when I'm paying over $100 a week for Aiden's ABA therapy. Out of pocket. So I'm like, there's no way I can make that work right now. Like, if you had told me last week, instead of having my mom buy me a diamond painting, I would have asked her to chip in and pay for this MRI so we can do some shit, because I'm in pain. I don't know what's wrong, and no one will give me any medicine to help. So they're like, or we can send you to physical therapy, because that's why they won't cover it. They want you to try and fail physical therapy for 6 weeks before they'll cover it. Now, you tell me, how is physical therapy going to fix me if we don't know what's wrong? Oh my God, I'm going on 2 hours. I'm so sorry. Hopefully you guys are watching this in bits and pieces and not all at once. But seriously, it's kind of like they're playing pin the tail on the donkey with my health, and I'm the damn donkey. I do not want to play with doing physical therapy, not knowing where the injury is, and potentially making it worse. I want to know where the problem is so we know where to fix. I don't understand why that's not the process they want to go through. I feel like right now they're just like, hey, do the physical therapy, let's see if we can help or make it worse. And with the doctor already saying that I might need to have surgery, I don't want to be in a position where I don't need surgery and physical therapy will help, but I do the physical therapy not knowing what's wrong. They focus on the wrong part of my spine, make the problem worse, and then I need surgery. So that's where we stand right now. Normally, when insurance denies or approves anything, like prior authorizations or pre-certs, they will send a letter in the mail, and it includes an appeal sheet that you can fill out if you want to appeal the decision. I haven't received that yet, so I have to contact the insurance to see if I can appeal this decision, because I'm so down to do physical therapy, especially if it gets me out of having to have surgery. Like, I'm not trying to avoid physical therapy, I'm not trying to be lazy, but I feel like it's lazy and cheap as hell to want to treat me with physical therapy, not knowing what's wrong, possibly making it worse and making the bill even higher. So I'm just frustrated all around. I have a neurologist who didn't believe me. I cannot get any medication to help with the pain, so I'm just suffering, especially on ABA days. And like last night, Matt got home. Matt's been working overnights last week and this week and probably next week. They were doing rotations, but someone ended up getting COVID, so Matt had to take one of their weeks. But yeah, he's working overnight, so he leaves for work at 2:30 and he doesn't get home until 2:30 in the morning. I get up at 5:30 in the morning because Aiden's back at school. And last night, Matt got home and I was still awake because I was in so much pain I could not sleep. So he got in bed with, normally he'll like go play on the computer or something and wind down so that he can go to sleep. He came lay in bed with me and like caressed my back to try to relax me. But the vibrating, I was in so much pain and the vibrating was so intense and it was so disorienting and uncomfortable feeling that I just couldn't sleep. So that's where we stand. I don't know what's wrong yet. There's something wrong, but nobody cares to know what it is. No one wants to treat it. And I'm just done with all of it. So yeah, I'm sorry you guys had to listen to me bitch, but this is pretty much all that's been going on. For the most part, my life is pain, going to ABA and sitting in the car diamond painting in bed and taking lots of naps. And that's pretty much it. So yeah, this was my WIP Chat this week. If there's anything you guys want to know more about, get into ABA, if you want me to talk about a specific thing, if you want me to tell you crazy stories about me to make you laugh, or think, oh my gosh, she's such an idiot, like the time that I got really high and said something really stupid to a bunch of guys in the middle of the night when I was by myself. Like anything, just let me know, because I do want to resurrect the channel, but I feel like I'm boring, especially right now. There's nothing really happening and besides my health, and I feel like nobody wants to hear about it. I love listening to all of you. I love getting to know you better. But then when I reflected back to myself, I'm like, I'm boring. Nobody really cares. So it's hard to do these. And with me not really buying anything, there's not much to unbox. I mean, I could have done an unboxing of the Wee Wax, but you can't even smell it. Smell it. Smell it. Smells like nothing. Well, not to you. Smells amazing to me. And it's poolside, and I want to use it on this kit because it'll be like it's actually underwater, you know? Anyway, thank you guys so much for listening. If you have any comments or advice or suggestions, drop it in the comments. And I love you, my friends, so much, and I appreciate you all. And I'm just really grateful and lucky to have people who I have never met but show me so much love. And I don't just mean buying me things, which I forgot to get to that. I don't just mean buying me things, just being there, chatting, wanting to know what's going on, checking in on me. I just really appreciate all of you and your friendship. Real quick, I swear this will be fast. I want to clarify that my post about Tracy Lewis before Miranda bought it for me was in no way me trying to get people to buy me things. I actually hate people like that. I hate when people are like, oh, buy me things, I can't afford it. Like, my main issue and the reason I posted it was just to whine and get out my frustration that finally this image exists and I can't have it. someone commented on it, and the comment's gone now, but they commented on it and said something about how I should make a pen for Miranda to thank her for the gift. And I was like, I totally would if pens were being made right now, because they're not. Matt's working nights right now. My health issues, he's trying to be here for me. He's had to pick up a lot more of the housework on top of working his full-time job plus overtime that he does. So there's a lot on his plate, and I can't stand out there for very long, and Miranda would probably beat my ass if I did. So I was like, I would totally make a pen for her. And there are a few of you that can vouch for that we have given pens out just as a thank you to some people. So we had already talked about doing one for Miranda because she supported our business so much ever since Brad told her about us, and she's had our back, and we wanted to make her a pen, but then everything went haywire with my health. But then this person was like, pretty much said something to the effect of, it's the least you can do when you're out here begging people to buy you things. That's $100 kit. That's the least you could do. And I'm like, I didn't ask anybody to buy me anything. Did I really want that kit? Absolutely. And it was the top of my wish list. But I don't want people to spend their money on me. I have plenty of kits to get me through. It was just really hard to be patient. So I just needed to vent that I have to be patient on this one. That meant so much to me. And I appreciate Miranda so much for getting it for me, but she did not have to do that at all. I found out that Jessica and Katie were also trying to get it for me, and Robin shut that down and was like, somebody already bought it for her. So there's been a few people, and a thank you so much. I love you guys so much. Not even that you did get it for me, but that you thought of me. Many of the people who are getting me things are going through financial issues or other kind of things going on in their life. And yes, it was my birthday, but I feel like my birthday is only really important to me and like my mom maybe, and sometimes my husband if he remembers it. I never expected anybody that I know online to be as kind and generous to get me things for my birthday, and I would never ask it. And I actually felt a little bit of guilt because watching Miranda's WIP Chats, I know that she's currently not working and she's trying to be more, I don't want to say stingy, but she's trying to be more like decisive. I can't think of the word, but she's trying to be like, how much do I need this thing? Do I really love this thing? Do I have to have this thing now? She's trying to pull back a little bit on spending. So the fact that she spent so much money on me makes me feel guilty because I don't want her to struggle. I don't want any of my friends to struggle. If you're going through something, knowing that you're working on getting out of that, knowing that you're happy, getting to call you my friends is the most important thing to me. And no money or gifts or anything in the world that I could do for you guys would ever be enough to repay everything you are for me. So again, I love you and I appreciate you for saying hi to me in lives, DMing me and checking on me, just being my friend and laughing at me when I'm being ridiculous and bullying Nightbot with me. I don't know why I'm sticking my hands in the camera, I'm sorry. But yeah, each one of you is a gift every day. I don't need birthday gifts, and I would never ask for them. I talked to Miranda about it, and Miranda was pissed, and she's like, no, I knew you had to have it, because every time Robin would do a drop and post, like, she'd shut down the shop and say new paintings were coming when they came back up, and I'd be on it looking for Tracy Lewis every single time. So Miranda knew how much it meant to me, and she's like, you know, your birthday was coming up, and you had told, because I had talked to her a while ago about maybe having to have surgery. So she's known for months and months and months that I'm really about this kit. So when it came out, she bought it for me. She said she didn't even see my post complaining about not being able to get it. But she wanted to get it to me because she knew how much I loved it. And I'm like, yeah, see, like, I got a complex of maybe people thought I was trying to guilt people into buying me things, or they felt obligated to buy me something. So I asked her, and she's like, absolutely not. And then she mentioned that, and I'm like, yeah, like, that would have had to have been a really long game, like, since December, when I could have bought the kits, because we weren't dealing with all of this. I would have had to have been a psychic and played a really long game to try to manipulate people into buying it for me now. So I just wanted to comment on that because it's still in my head. I don't expect anything but your friendship and kindness, and for you to keep being the incredible human beings that you are. That is my gift every day from all of you. And I love you all. Bye, guys.